Thank you. All right, welcome everybody to tonight's public hearing and town board meeting. And I guess before we get started, I'll lead the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Great. As you are probably aware, the first item tonight will be a public hearing on the 2024 shared services plan that the county is putting forward to the state. And so this plan will be presented to the legislature in November. And in advance of that, we've scheduled several public hearings. And we in Caroline, Lansing, and Newfield, because those towns, those rural parts of the county have been most affected by the deficit of emergency response in those rural areas. So I want to start, and I'm really happy that Mike Steitley has joined us tonight. He agreed to come and say a few words. I'll just mention that for me, this began with committee work for the Tompkins County Council of Governments in 2020 that picked up on work addressing this sort of known problem. Irene Weiser had worked on this with TCOG a few years earlier and produced a report. And it was still something that we felt we needed to work on. So we formed a committee and worked on it steadily over the last 2.5 years or so. So, or actually 3 years. So, and I want to acknowledge Rorden Hart, the mayor of Trumansburg, Dan Lamb, council member in Dryden, and the folks at DOER who've been so helpful. Justin Van, Jessica Verabus, Mike, Joe Milliman, who came on as the program director this year. That was a sort of an outgrowth of our planning. So I'm not going to say too much more because I think Mike can do a better job of it, do more justice. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to say a few words before we have the public hearing. Come on up here, Mike. And I just want to mention one thing that I did after the public hearing. We will provide a brief time for Q&A. So if people have questions, Mr. Hoyt.
I guess this is kind of a meta question. What is the town board being asked to do? Usually if there's a public hearing.
Okay, so that's a good question. I meant to address that. So these are public hearings on the shared services plan. The board, the town board is actually not doing anything. It's going to be a vote by the county legislature. So any comments received tonight will be transmitted to the legislators, and the same for the other public hearings. So that's an excellent question.
Okay, thank
you. Yeah. Okay. So take it away, Mike. And thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. My name is Michael Steitley. I'm the director at the Department of Emergency Response, and I've been in my position for about 2 years. And before I get into an overview of the EMS proposal I'm here to discuss, I just want to acknowledge Mark. Very early on in my tenure, I was invited to join the TCOG EMS subcommittee. Mark has been very kind and very patient as I've learned. really what I consider to be, every community has its own very unique needs, and him and the rest of the board has been very patient in allowing me to catch up and understanding really what the needs are here in Tompkins County. So thank you, Mark, very much. So I'm here tonight to talk about the rapid medical response program that we're proposing that would be managed out of the Department of Emergency Response. The vision behind the rapid medical response program is first and foremost to provide rapid medical care, emergency medical care to residents throughout the county, but while supporting the community-based services. What we're proposing would not eliminate or replace any of the community-based services, but instead augment the community-based services, many of which are struggling to answer emergency medical calls. We've been keeping very close data over the past year, and we're seeing upwards of about 45% of the initial call for service for emergency medical service at the rescue level. And for those that don't know what that is when typically a fire-based EMS service goes in advance of a transport ambulance to an emergency medical call. And what we're seeing is that many of those calls across the county are going unanswered or require some level of mutual aid assistance. So our vision for this program is to strategically place what we're referring to as a rapid medical response vehicle, 3 of them throughout the county, and that they each have their own sort of designated catchment area, and they would go to these calls that cannot necessarily be answered by the community-based services, or could be a partner with community-based agency that's also dispatched to that call. The way emergency medical dispatch works in Tompkins County is that we have a protocol that the 911 dispatchers follow when they screen the call for emergency medical services, and they essentially then assign that call a call type or determinant code, and that starts. Yes,
Can you talk a little slower?
absolutely. I'm sorry. I am a fast talker. The screening process for a 911 call requires the dispatcher to ask very specific questions of the caller, of what exactly is the medical emergency, and then they create a code based on the information they've received from the caller, and that can be anywhere from what we refer to as an alpha code to an echo code. And the echo code is the most severe and most significant emergency that we would need to send an ambulance to. Many of the alpha level calls, which are the lower level calls, do often go unanswered by the community-based services. And the first contact they have with a first responder is when a transport ambulance arrives. And in some instances, depending on where you are in the county, that could be up to 25 or 30 minutes. Now, why is that significant? It's significant because most 911 calls get screened in about 70 seconds so that we can get the necessary resources out to the caller. Sometimes the person who's calling doesn't necessarily have a good grasp on the medical emergency. So a call could be coded as an alpha call. So we're thinking it's a lower level call, but when an ambulance arrives, they realize it was a much more serious call, like somebody in respiratory distress or having some form of a cardiac event. So our vision for this program would be that we would answer all those calls. Now, I want to really stress that none of this is at all to point fingers at the community-based services. It's not. It's just that we're evolving as a society, and the number of EMS calls continue to go up. And it is my hope that by doing this, that what we're going to do is really supply a much needed relief to the community-based services that are getting a lot of these calls for service. And it's really mostly during the day. Our program would run Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's where we see that there's the greatest need. And really over time, it might change because, we might decide that the southern end of the county would be better served with an 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. truck, and maybe the northern end could be different. We really want this to be data driven. And we want it to be fluid. And more importantly, we really want to have the latitude that as the program grows and evolves, that we have the opportunity to make the adjustments needed, but always in partnership with the community-based services. And again, it is my hope that by doing this, that we can take some of the burden off the community-based services, and those departments that are capable of answering the calls, that's wonderful if they're able to do it. then, we can just be a backup to them. Sometimes people call 911 because they need to be lifted from the ground and put back into a chair. They don't necessarily need to go to the hospital, but that might take up to 30 minutes for an ambulance to come to do that simple task. And now we're taking an ambulance away from another potential emergency. So that's a real high level overview. I'm more than willing to answer any questions when Mark feels that it's appropriate, but I am here, to be a partner in this. And Mark offered me the opportunity to join via Zoom, and I felt it was really important because it's such an important decision for every community to be here in person, to meet more members of the community, and most importantly, to make myself available to you, whether you have a question tonight or anytime in the future.
Thank you for that.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike.
You're welcome.
Really.
Now, should I stay put or should I go back to the?
Actually, you're welcome to stay
Okay,
put there.
okay.
And, Irene,
Yeah, question. So first of all, I want to just thank Mark and Mike and everybody who's been involved in this. I used to be on the town board, used to be a TCOG. We kicked off this issue probably 6 years ago or so. Lee Shirtliff was still director of DOER, and it was the first time that we raised a red flag about this. And there were a lot of challenges, right? There were a lot of challenges in the county. Because people didn't really think it was a countywide problem, it's just a Caroline issue, and whatever. Anyhow, I'm thrilled that there's been continuity and that these efforts have continued, and yay for getting it to this point. The question I have is for these what we were calling fly car things. Is that what you would, or are they different than fly cars?
It's a little bit different.
Okay.
One of the things that I've learned by sitting on the TCOG committee and through our EMS program manager, Joe Middleman, is the term fly car is normally reserved for a paramedic.
Yeah,
That
was exactly what I was gonna ask,
and-
is what level of training?
This will be basic life support. So BLS or EMT basic level.
Okay,
Because frankly, the majority of the calls
Yeah.
are basic life support. And again, I think if we can keep those paramedics available for those more critical calls, then I think we'd be better serving the entire county. I've read so much of your documentation, by the way, so kudos to you as well. So I went back, and a lot of that still lives on the Tompkins County website. So I think, as much as I admire Mark, for what he's done, I think, going back and looking at some of what you did is admirable as well. So
thanks. It was totally better.
so maybe we're having the Q&A first. Is this a Q&A or a comment?
I think that makes sense.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
Something we need to have our
Yeah.
questions answered.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
I have more questions than I have. Oh, are you done, Irene?
Yeah, I was just explaining that I think it makes sense to do the Q&A
Yeah.
before you do a public comment, because
Sure, I
that way
agree. Yeah,
you're informed about what you're commenting on.
great.
So,
I have more questions than I have attention span and memory, so I'm gonna kind of shoot as things come to the forefront. So you mentioned the basically 12/5 coverage. And is that because the volunteers are generally gone during the workday and that's where the demand for coverage is? Is that what's driving that decision to limit your coverage?
you want to go ahead and answer that now? Because I wasn't sure if there's a follow-up.
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to go ahead and answer that part of the question now, or was there a follow-up? Because I can answer that part.
Yeah, please answer that.
Absolutely.
Well, because by the time I get my last question. I
No, that's okay. I just didn't want to, what I didn't, so you'll have to excuse me because I do talk fast because I'm from New Jersey originally. So I always say, don't hold that against me, but that's where it comes from because in New Jersey, everybody's trying to talk. But
We won't hold it against you if you talk slow.
very good. So it's a great question and it's twofold. The first is we do notice that the volunteer community-based departments do struggle to get coverage during the day, time hours, but it's also where we're seeing the greatest volume of calls. So, and that's, and one probably feeds the other. So we're getting.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
I would have expected more tonight, so it falls on the day.
Yeah. Yes, so the greatest volume of calls comes, really between that 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. But it's also where we seem to have the most difficulty in, where the community-based services have the most difficulty.
This
That's true too.
Yeah.
That's very true.
This strikes me as a very positive step, a step in the right direction. I question though, 3 cars spread across Tompkins County, and I assume that doesn't count the city, they have their own city services. But if you cover the rural, surround Ithaca, I guess, about 320 degrees of arc surrounding Ithaca. You know, it's still there are gonna be scenarios where it's gonna take your car as long as you get somewhere to find an ambulance. I guess
Absolutely.
that's a fact of life.
It's a great point. So to address the city issue, so even though there will be an overlap of coverage into the city, we don't really anticipate doing any coverage in the city unless it's something really significant, because the Ithaca Fire Service does provide that first level of medical aid in the advance of a transport ambulance. Part of this vision is to have units strategically placed around the county, so they would have a staging area. So unlike, like say, maybe for example, some other services where they might float throughout the county, we would really have a base camp for each of those 3 units, so that they can really stay in their catchment area. And then, other than something that's really significant, that's what we would hope to do.
Would that be a building or just a staging area or?
So we've started conversation with a few community partners about, if there's a possibility to allow an EMT to, stay in their, for example, their fire station. We haven't completely solidified that yet, so I don't want to necessarily name departments, because it wouldn't be fair to do that without their leadership being present. But we have received a lot of really positive feedback, that could be a possibility. So if we can develop that partnership, with 3 community-based services, then that would be ideal, because then, especially during inclement weather, or if there is a slower time of day, that the EMT isn't required to stay in their vehicle. Plus, it would save money by not having a vehicle running all the time. So that's the direction we'd like to take it, and we're getting some good feedback, and the initial reaction has been very positive and desire. And something I didn't mention in the beginning that I think is really important to mention now is that when we came up with this concept, what Mark didn't touch on is we created an EMS steering committee, and that was made up of about 20 community partners, and Mark was one of those partners. And so we pitched this to the steering committee, and we helped them. They really helped us sort of round out this vision. So because initially we were thinking maybe we'd have 1, maybe 2 units, and then we really settled on 3 based again on the data. When we originally pitched it to the Public Safety Committee last year, we weren't sure exactly what our needs would be, because it was, as Mark will tell you, it happened very quickly. So, I think it's just important to note that this was something that was embraced by at least 20 community partners. But in addition to that, the Fire Chiefs Association has unanimously supported this and has written a letter of support to the legislature. And we're getting a lot of great support from the Fire Chiefs Association to move forward with this program, because I think that they see the value too. And they had a seat and representation on the steering committee. But in addition to that, in their bi-monthly meetings, we've been able to get some really great feedback from them.
That's great. I saw Rick Morgan's hand up a little while ago.
Well, I think part of that good answer, I think they asked about what are you gonna do with the vehicle when it's not static, where are you gonna keep it, and city of the state of it.
So you mean on the overnight hours, or when it's not in service, or when it's service and it's not being
When
used?
nobody's sitting in it, what do you wanna call? What do
Sure.
you do with the vehicle when it's big?
Well, that will depend. We've, again, as I mentioned, we started to discuss some partnerships with some of the various fire departments where we feel that it can, if we could develop that partnership, it would be strategically located there, and that, the vehicle would then be parked, and then maybe they could rest in the fire station. But again, we haven't, none of that's incomplete yet, but that's what we're hoping to be able to do. But then after that, at 7 p.m., the vehicles would go back up to the Department of Emergency Response, be checked over, and make sure that they're ready for the next shift the following morning. So that's where they would be in the evening. So maybe that was part of your question that I missed. So
And you're looking at 2 people crews,
one person.
1 person.
And it doesn't mean that may not evolve, but right now, just to get the support, we're looking at having 1 person. Because remember, this person should be really on scene for a limited amount of time before they get some level of support, from another entity, which could be the community-based services. So our intent is to be simultaneously dispatched with, any given fire service that provides rapid medical response or rescue services to their community. If they're able to stand up their service, then we can cancel, go back in service and be prepared for the next call. But there might be instances where that, the rapid medical team from Dewar still responds to that call if that fire service might need assistance and maybe just lifting a person up. So, part of this is to try to reduce the amount of times an ambulance gets to a call where the patient just signs off because they needed some form of assistance and they really didn't need necessarily transport to the hospital.
Becky?
This all sounds really great, and thank you for your work. I do have one question, well, two questions that are sort of, they go together. In a town like Caroline, which is part of it is, 30 to 45 minutes out of Center Ithaca. And then if you have bad weather, there's also that. And we no longer have community-based services, that we have our fire departments, but we don't have the ambulance any longer. So I'm trying to figure out how this will work for us between, let's say, 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. The second part of the question is, I'm particularly interested in advanced life support skills. Because if the first car arrives and they say, whoa, we need an ambulance here, this person is in very serious condition, and then they have to wait another half hour for bags to get there.
It's a great question.
It looks like a problem.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that, this is a starting point, but I think you're bringing up many very valid points. As far as the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., I don't know if I have a solution for that at this point in time, but I think this is foundational in nature, which means that there could be an opportunity to grow. Because we're doing this at the basic life support level, not having paramedics, that does, as you know, does limit us to some degree, but there's many things that an EMT can do in 2023 that they couldn't do even 5 years ago. There's certain medication they can provide. So I'm not here to say this will solve all of our problems, but it will solve many of our problems. But more importantly, it gives us an opportunity to evaluate in a year, 2 years to see, okay, should we move this to an advanced level support? Now, because it's basic life support and because we're not moving for a certificate of need, part of that is because we didn't want to do anything that would, really give the appearance that we're doing anything to hurt our partners that do the transporting. So I think that's very important because, community-based services isn't necessarily limited to just the volunteers. Bangs is also a very strong community partner, and we really didn't want to do anything that would hinder their growth. But also at the basic support level, we're not allowed to bill, so we won't be billing for this service. So once you get into the ALS level or the paramedic level, that is something that could be possible. But I would really like that to be driven by the community and by the community leaders, especially those in EMS, that says, maybe we should take this to the next level. Maybe that's a 2025 goal or a 2026 goal. But we thought that since the majority of the calls are at the basic life support level, that we felt that this would be a really great starting point. And then hopefully that paramedic unit that might be coming for basic life support call, or maybe even a call that doesn't even need to go to the hospital, could be freed up for those more critical calls like you noted. So.
Tony?
So I'm concerned about safety protocols with the single BLS provider. As a previous EMT in the town of Caroline myself, there were a number of calls where I was the first one on the scene and I couldn't enter that particular scene for various reasons without support. But I knew that Kathy or someone else would be right behind me and it would just be a matter of a few minutes. So it was okay to wait. But what is the protocol in a domestic situation when you've got one BLS available during the day and the only other alternative is to wait for a trooper from who knows how far they are, ambulance, from Ithaca, you know, it just seems like there needs to be extensive safety protocols in place as far as the screening of the calls and what even gets directed towards that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as you noted towards the tail end of your question, the screening protocol has to really be spot on. So let's take an incident. Let's use your example of a domestic violence call. If it's a domestic violence call, that rapid medical response unit will not be permitted to advance in. They're gonna be staged nearby that scene until they get the proper law enforcement support. The same way a transport unit would be. Single responder, rapid medical response or fly cars are not uncommon. I mean, that's typically the model already here in Tompkins County. But I think that if it's anything that rises to the level of what we would normally stage a unit on, we do have a staging protocol at the Department of Emergency Response that we follow for all of our BLS and fire departments, that if it requires that they're gonna stage, they're gonna stage. And we're not gonna have them just go, especially on a domestic violence call. But I think to elaborate a little bit, if we have a unit network that's staging, and say they're staging a block away, they're 2 blocks away, that's information now we can share with the law enforcement partner to let them know that there is a unit in proximity of the call that's awaiting their arrival. So that also might change the way they're responding. If they know that there's another first responder, they're awaiting assistance as opposed to them being the first responder. And that adds a level of complexity to their job too, because sometimes they arrive and they have to first be law enforcement officers to make sure the scene is safe for all incoming other first responders, but now they could also be faced with a medical emergency. So we're hoping that this could also free up our law enforcement partners that are sometimes used as ad hoc medical first responders when there's nobody else available. So I hope that answered your question, but I think it's a great point and one that we're going to take very seriously when it comes to scene safety.
So are you guys communicating with the state police and they're the ones that are present out in these rural communities? Is there any kind of effort to collaborate with them?
So we collaborate with the state police and all of our law enforcement partners on a routine basis. And even though the state police didn't have a seat at the planning stage of this, as far as the steering committee, we did have other law enforcement partners as part of that. But many of them are very well aware of what we're doing, because there's other meetings that we report out on, such as the EROC committee. If you're not familiar with that, it's the Emergency Response Oversight Committee. It's where my department gets its marching orders, and we've reported out on this extensively, and the state police is part of that. But as we get closer to this, if it does get approval from the legislature, we'll have some of those more operational meetings with our law enforcement partners to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Great. Kathy, you asked initially, did you have a question?
Oh, I have a lot of them, but I don't know how much of them should come out here. I mean, a lot of them, I actually looked over your proposal pretty well. I had some questions logistically, how things are going to be paid
Sure.
for and why they're going to be paid for. I don't want to bore you with that right now. I can pull you aside for that, but I do. I have a question about training. How are your responders going to be trained? Is that gonna be a responsibility of the doer, or are they gonna be coming from home agencies that they'll get trained?
So it would really depend. I mean, frankly, my honest opinion is that I think that a person that's serving in this capacity should have a little bit of experience under their belt, because of especially the level of independent work they're going to be doing. It doesn't mean that there couldn't be an opportunity as a feeder program that we couldn't come up with something eventually, but we'd like to see somebody with a minimum level of experience. That hasn't been completely determined, but I don't know necessarily that I would want an EMT right out of school to do this. And for those that have done it in the past, but we might have to put a threshold on. Maybe it's 3 years or 5 years and goes, those are just soft numbers. That's not even something we've talked about, but we have talked about the type of candidate that we think would be appropriate for this type of response, because again, they're going to be doing a lot of independent work. They're going to have to be confident. They're going to have to be very comfortable with the new EMS protocols, especially when it comes to medications for our cardiac event. When I first became an EMT in 1986, EMTs weren't allowed to give. I know. Well, that makes me feel good. but we weren't allowed to give aspirin, nitroglycerin, epinephrine, and we've watched it evolve at the basic level. Defibrillators weren't even a thing, let alone something that we thought an EMT could do.
So that leads to another question.
Sure.
Will you be providing the optional equipment like a glucometer and or Narcan? But you really didn't answer.
Yeah,
Before I ask that
Yep,
question, you
sure.
really didn't answer how the training's gonna work.
well,
Are you gonna
I don't know if I-
come from an agency or is the doer gonna train?
Okay, so because I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to avoid the question, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So if we post a position for an EMT basic, then they're going to come to us with the skills that they would need to perform this job. We will have to do some level of in-service, specific to our community, but ideally, I'd like to hire somebody that's already an EMT.
I understand,
Oh,
that, but
okay.
you have to have compliance. I mean,
Yes.
if they're from a home agency.
Yes,
Then maybe they're honing.
Oh, I see.
What they're
Okay.
gonna be training them.
yes, I'm sorry. I wasn't understanding your question. Yes. So we are going to apply for a state number to operate at the basic level. Joe Milliman, who previously served as the Groton's EMS manager, he'll be able to do all that in-house training that we need in order to ensure compliance. So I hope that answers your question.
CSCIC.
I don't know if he's a CIC or not, so he might even be on the call because he was gonna try.
So and then the second piece
Yep.
of that question is the optional medications. So like Narcan and or the glucometer.
Yeah, so I think whatever an EMT basic is permitted to carry, by law, we're going to make sure that they carry.
Those
So,
aren't required.
Right.
They are optional.
oh, I see. Yeah, so the answer is yes. So, yeah, our hope would for them to be carrying Narcan, the epinephrine, aspirin, and, the beta
And the glucometer.
and the
So
glucose.
that's all going to involve in-house training.
Yes, and Joe would be, now, I don't want to misspeak, but if Joe's not capable of doing that training, he'll know somebody, like, for example, something I'm very proud about, because this was a request out of the Fire Chiefs Association. We have a new EMT program starting tomorrow in Tompkins County. It's been quite some time since we were able to get an EMT class back in the county, and Joe was instrumental in doing that with, as you noted, CMC's partnership. So I'm really excited about that. So again, if he's not capable of doing that optional training, I'm sure we'll have a partner that can do it.
So hypothetically, this could potentially take a lot of staff and a lot of the active EMTs, are either employed by banks or running with other services. So in order to try to draw more from the pool, because there might just literally not be enough, is there any kind of discussion of maybe paying for people to get recertified that were former EMTs?
No, but that's not a bad idea. Like, and I think that's the value of these type of conversations, because you can learn, obviously, as I am, from the community. I think if there's a way for somebody that may have previous experience that is interested in recertifying, to be part of something like this, I don't see why that couldn't be considered.
And that could potentially be something that each municipality.
That's right. And right, and you've touched on something else that we're trying to be very cautious about. So, some of our EMS partners are concerned that we'll be pulling staff from them, and that, that would cause a problem. I mean, I think that that's a possibility. We're gonna do our best not to have that happen, but also we fall under, New York Civil Service. So it's not like we can just preclude a person because they work or, for another agency, but it is something we're very sensitive to, and it's something we want to be very cautious about. And it's something we've been talking a lot about, because we don't want to do anything that would hurt, the Dryden's, the Trumansburg, the Groton, or Banks, for example.
So do you have a really good marketing person that ties previous EMTs back into it?
Well, that would be me. I also wear a marketing hat now.
Well, it's on that social media.
So, I think you're really touching on something, because, we have talked about recruiting, and maybe that is an option, and that's something I hadn't given any previous thought to, but I'm excited about that possibility.
Mike, it's not even an option. Recruiting, because what I understand, a little I understand about volunteer services, there's people there that want to help. That we need to be recruiting and giving them training, and not just kind of,
Sure.
I think recruiting is really important.
I agree with you. Yeah, thank you.
These are paid positions though, right?
These will be paid positions. And what will make it unique is, and one of the reasons, just to be frank, so, a little bit about my background, I've been in really emergency services for my entire adult life. I was a police officer and I retired from that role, but prior to that, I worked as a career EMT in 2 different urban departments in New Jersey. One was Newark, New Jersey, where we ran about 100,000 EMS calls a year, 16 per shift per ambulance, to give you some context, and also Jersey City. But the difference was when I worked in Newark, I was a government employee, and I worked in Jersey City, I was not. So there was always this draw, and I was one of those people that went and worked in Jersey City, but aspired to work in Newark because I wanted a career, but a pension. And I think that will make our positions very attractive to folks that really want to be in EMS. Now, on a personal level, I hit a point in my EMS career where I had to make a decision if I wanted to advance to become a paramedic. But the salary for paramedics, and still there's a lack of parity when it comes to other first responders. I made the decision to leave the career that I love, become a police officer, because I was trying to look at the big picture for me and my family, only to retire to sort of now fall right back into where I started, which was EMS. And I was 15 when I started and 16 when I became an EMT. And I was a volunteer until I moved, and for nearly 35 years. So I have a lot of respect for volunteerism, and I still serve as my community's EMS agency's volunteer chairman of the board of directors, even though I live 269 miles away, because that's how much I love my home agency and I love volunteerism. So I think that we have to be very careful, but I also think that our positions will be very attractive to people. And I think what we need to do, and that's not just in New York, but across the country, we need parity. We need pensions for EMTs and paramedics, because otherwise they just want to go on into the fire service or to law enforcement because they do have pensions. And I know that that's not necessarily something everybody wants to hear, but we need EMS, and frankly, quite frankly, the 911 center is sort of in the same boat to some degree. It needs to stop being a stepping stone, and we need to embrace it, and we need to allow people to grow in it as a profession, and allow them to follow their passion and not have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
And these are very high.
Right. I mean, and back at a personal level. So there was a time when I worked in Newark, Jersey City, and Rutgers University EMS all at the same time. And I was just constantly going from one site to the next site, only to become a police officer and have all that money I made in 3 departments be equivalent to my starting salary as a police officer. So that's just a little bit about where I come from and why I'm so passionate about this. But I just would like to circle back to your point. I completely agree about the recruiting and also the retention. So we want our department to be unique. Like, for example, one of the things that we'd really like to be able to do with our EMS providers is, what can they do with community outreach? Joe, for example, has been doing some teaching in CPR for a lot of community-based services. We're able to do it almost at the cost of the card because it's part of his job. So it's not like you're paying for an instructor, you're just paying for, the certifying material. That can be a significant savings to a volunteer department. And so we're hoping that this staff, we can expand on that and maybe even eventually do stop the bleed programs, public access, to Narcan training, let these EMS professionals do more than just answer a call, let them become part of our community and help train our community.
You need to be able to bill for your services.
Not initially. So the service that we're doing now.
But,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Oh,
yes. I see your point. Yes. Yeah. I missed it. I'm sorry.
no.
Right. First off, I've been involved in this for 46 years. What, looking at page 7, the top, the rescue startup cost. You get down Carolina, they have $557,000. Down here, some places like Lansing, it's $106,000. You have a lot more people call in Lansing than there is out here in Carolina. Why is the cost so much per Carolina?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm exactly prepared to answer that question. I might have to just take another look at this document. This is the shared service document, right? This is not.
Yes, it
okay.
is. It is.
So,
Yes.
Yep.
When I was looking at this, I was wondering if it wasn't partially in relationship to equipment or services that were already in place at the middle of the cost.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I.
no, it's a fair question, and I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have a really good answer for you, so I'm gonna have to circle back with you to get you a good answer. Because, you know, some of these numbers, I wasn't directly involved in determining, so what I don't wanna do is give you a wrong answer. I'd much rather humble myself and say, you know what, I'm not prepared for it, but be able to get back to you with a good answer.
And, so I'll say, we used to have, rescue squad there. They lack a call, back, wherever, people have dropped out, especially in Slater line. At night, I will go Slater line. Sure. But anyway, we occasionally have a call out there. Basing this on, because we have 3 departments that need the services. I can see somebody saying, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
We don't have the near call.
Yeah, I think it is based on departments, because I'm looking at some of the rough numbers, so like, because the town of Enfield has one, Lansing has one, and Newfield has one, so I think that that's what the formula is. And that might be something that we need to look at, but I think it's because,
Absolutely,
yeah,
because I think your call lines be different, the size of the area.
sure. And I think what they're trying to do is, you know, just kind of be equitable across the board. In other words, come up with a figure that they can assign by department, but as I'm doing some quick math here, it's really by agency as opposed to the town.
Yeah, because we have 2 agencies that no longer have a rescue.
Right.
They have fire department that are responsible.
Right. Right, but the first responder program would be answering in those, that would be part, yeah, in that catchment area, yes.
Will had her hand up.
So how will the answer to this question get back to us?
Well, so I'm gonna I feel that the answer I gave as I'm sitting here thinking of it is the correct answer. I just wanna make sure, so I will email Mark. I will let him know, but it's my recollection now that I'm looking at this, because it is a great question, when I wasn't prepared for it, but a fair one. But I'm pretty sure that's because of the 3 fire departments in the town of Caroline versus like, you know,
It'll be, you got one.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly,
you know what, I-
exactly, right,
Right, you got 5 departments.
yeah. Right, and so, right, 5 departments, Danby has 2, and, you know,
Why is it dropping so big?
Big gas department. Yeah, those got fire call. Yeah, that's what we're saying, big, that's
Yeah.
got 3 different tax districts.
right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
if you look at that, keep in mind, you got it wrapped now for, say, roughly 93,000.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm gonna have to double check, and that could even be a mistake. You know, that's why it's worth it, so thank you. So what I will do, to answer your question, ma'am, is I will get an answer to this. I will email it to Mark so that, it can get distributed to the community.
Great, thank you. Pete?
I'm so glad that Rick pointed that out. It raises, I'm just curious about funding for this overall. Now presumably, the 500,000 or 100,000 is kind of allocation. The county legislature will put in their budget so much money for this program, and it'll be allocated presumably on kind of a dynamic basis. So these numbers are estimates.
That's right.
I don't think we get too frightened by them, but it does sound like we're talking a pretty large scale thing here. I mean, we're talking about well over $1 million a year, yes.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, when we have 3 people, let's say 4 people to cover 3 full-time positions.
It's actually gonna be shy of
That's
that.
$1 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I have to propose to the legislature as part of this plan. In fact, that there's a meeting now set up for me to go and speak with them at the expanded budget meeting for this exact reason. I mean, I think another way to look at it is it's a shared service. So by having, 3 units versus 1 unit for every town, I mean, part of this is, if every single community-based service were to have to start the same service, it would more likely probably be an ambulance versus a first responder, like a career service. So I think there's going to be an aggregate savings because now we're going to be sort of spreading that out around the county.
Well, I understand
Yeah.
that, but I mean, still, the absolute number we agreed is on the order of $1 million.
Right.
And you've got 3 cars, 4 salaried people, administrative overhead.
Right.
Materials. That still sounds, I mean, do you personally think that $1 million is the right number to ask for, or what you're?
Well, it's probably gonna be actually higher than that, and I think, but part of that is what's difficult to answer right now with regards to what the actual startup costs are gonna be. Is part of it is that, you know, for example, the vehicles are gonna be a big cost, and what we're hoping to do is to repurpose some vehicles that are gonna get decommissioned. This is a pilot program, so, you know, so rather than spending money on buying brand new vehicles, unless we can get it grant funded, isn't really appealing to me if this isn't something that we're in for long haul. So if we can, for example, repurpose another vehicle that might have been due to be decommissioned or put out of service, there could be some savings there. The biggest cost is going to be in salary and fringe.
I mean, you've done a good job, excuse me. You've done a good job in justifying keeping costs down, but it doesn't really address my question, even with keeping costs down, the number seems so high, so I guess what I'm asking, rather than go back and forth here.
So can I just interject something from the chart here and make sure I don't misunderstand it? So the rescue yearly operating costs, comparing for the town, if the towns all did it separately, would be about $1.5 million. For the Department of Emergency Responses, cost would be about 500,000.
Yeah, but none of that addressed, you know, the magnitude of it, if you will, in the scale. You guys are still all talking relative. You know, it's more efficient for the county to do it and distribute the service with central
Right,
administration. of the
that
county.
addresses the magnitude, doesn't it?
Well, but the overall magnitude is so high, we're talking 500,000 versus $1 million. Your example. $1 million for what the county is, I extrapolated from the numbers that Rick read out, but you agree with those numbers. So I guess what I'm asking is if when you respond back to Mark, so to answer Will's question, you're gonna respond to Mark and Mark will put it out there. Could you also just have a short breakdown of, based on the proposal you're gonna make to the county legislature, we want this much money, you're gonna have to tell those guys what you want for. They're not gonna just accept a number.
Sure.
So could you share that with us?
Sure, I think that's actually in here, so maybe Mark.
I have not seen
Yeah.
the report, that's my bad.
You haven't seen this? So this has a lot of numbers in it, so
Thank you.
I think this is the numbers you need.
I think, yeah, what I wasn't clear on is just how it was broken down on page 7, that's what.
Is your contact information?
No, but I'll give you a business card before I leave.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And if I have questions, may I?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, or you can call me even too. I mean,
Be careful what you.
No, that's-
be careful what you.
no, I
So-
think it's, well, because sometimes it's easier, so if that helps, it's certainly.
Yeah, well, it is for me, but you're gonna say.
Well, if you want me to come down and get coffee with you, if you have any ideas, I'd love to do that too.
Myself coffee.
Yeah.
You can make a real day out of it.
Okay.
I'm done, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just had a question.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Looking at the hour, that we'll probably be wrapping this up. So assuming that this gets rolling, would you anticipate as it progresses that would anyone recommend to the county then that the towns begin sharing cost, or is that kind of subject of discussion at all?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the right answer for that, because I think that that's happening at a completely different level with the legislators, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's just something that
Yeah, I think it's a fair question.
I'm wondering.
I think that would be something we'd have to grapple with
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah.
Um,
But for the first year, it sounds like that is not on the table.
right, and one of the results of our committee work and Roaring Heart's brainchild was a bill to provide state reimbursement to municipalities to support rural, first response. And so those bills are in committee at the state level, so that's a possibility, but yeah, how we pay for it will be a discussion down the line.
But isn't there something too that seems to me it's by municipalities versus population, okay, it's the end result is to people. And
Right.
whereas this is kind of divvied up by Enfield, Newfield, Caroline, rather than just, okay, it's countywide, and there's this many people in the county, and well, there's 3,500 people in Caroline, and there's 100,000 in the county.
So
I mean, maybe it should be some.
no,
sort of
it's
hybrid.
fair. Yeah, so we're envisioning staging a unit in the Lansing, Groton area. One hopefully in the town of Caroline, and one maybe in the Newfield or Enfield area.
Yeah.
By, creating some overlap.
So that answers my other question, because there, you have 4 spots on your map, so I was wondering where strategically you were gonna put a 3-unit on those 4 spots.
I'd have to look at the map, and I don't think,
I think the fourth is.
yeah, the fourth is, yeah, it's the overlap, and the other is just the city. So our units, like if you look at the map, it's almost like a Venn diagram. You'll see the top circle. Now, if you look at, say, where we might position a unit in Lansing, it shows that going over to Trumansburg area. That's just not practical, right? Unless,
But they gotta build a bridge across
Yeah.
the lake.
I know that would make my commute easier.
It would.
But it's a good point. So
There's
we're
some
thinking
parts
that, but go to this, but they would help go, obviously like Dryden has their own EMS, so, whereas Lansing does not.
We're driving,
But- Right, but there would be some overlap. And this was,
How
right.
many departments?
And this was set up for basically 15 miles in any direction from the anticipated staging area. So again, if you just look like, within the town of Caroline, it could either be Newfield or Enfield, depending, because part of that is, Trumansburg has their own EMS, but it doesn't mean that there wouldn't ever be a need there if they're backed up. I mean, frankly, sometimes our transport agencies struggle as well. And even those that all have career positions. So we just wanted to, and we might find that maybe in 6 months that we might need to move it because maybe the data, there's in the EMS world, and the two of you might be familiar with it, there's something called system status dispatching where they just use data to decide where they put an ambulance, and it really depends on where you are. I mean, that could work in more urbanized areas where you have a concentration of ambulances within close proximity here. But, but using, I'm sorry. Okay, so, but to use that model, we can look at data and see like where are we likely to see the call to help us drive our decisions. So maybe, but I will tell you that it is my absolute hope that we have one of these units in the town of Caroline, because I think it would just be strategic for a number of reasons.
And just to elaborate on your point, and I think you've said this throughout, is that based on results and data, there's flexibility in how things are deployed or positioned or whatever, so. Right.
You have to be flexible. You can't be
Yeah, we might in 6 months decide, hey, we need to look at a completely different model, and we might see that there is more of a need for something that's more ALS driven. I don't think so, but I'm just using it as an example. I just want to be fluid, and frankly, community feedback is really important to me as well.
You don't have to go all the way up to paramedic. So.
Well, I agree. I think there's, I was ever a paramedic, and I think there's a lot that an EMT can do and is more capable of doing today versus, again, even 5, 6, 10 years ago. And I think most of the time they're going to be able to handle many of the calls. And our hope again is like some of these lower level calls that don't typically get a response now because of individual community-based protocols, that we're going to get a unit out there faster. So if the dispatcher did send it out as a lower level call and it turns out that it is a cardiac event, well, now we can contact the transport agency and say, this is a cardiac event. We really need you here, right now.
And will there be coordination with other, with the Seneca County area and the Steuben County area, and maybe a helicopter within 6 units, because helicopters are really expensive, but if you can spread it over.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the helicopter. I mean, we do have an agreement with Air Methods that provides air medical support in the area. And they've been part of some of our visionary talks as well. So we know that we have those units available. I think once we get through the phase of whether or not the legislature will approve this, then I think we can start expanding our conversation into like even Tioga County, for example.
Yeah, the neighboring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, one question to clarify.
Sure.
On page 4. A simple thing like you got $500 per employee. You're looking at 3 vehicles, you're gonna be staffed on 1 person per day.
Right, so what we're anticipating that if we were to look at each one of those staging areas as a crew, right? We're imagining that we're going to have one full-timer, one part-timer, and one per diem per unit. Because in EMS, they typically work 12 hours a day. So think about 3 people for each one of those designated response areas.
Great if you're only accommodating for. 12, 72, well, okay.
So typically EMS, yeah, full-time is normally 36 hours and then part.
Out of 36.
For EMS, that's typically what's considered full-time because they work 12-hour shifts. And then we would have, so they would do the first 36, the part-timer would do the 24, and then a per diem to help with their fringe, right?
So, I'm gonna call on Will, and then I'm gonna close down the discussion. We've gone about an hour, and I really appreciate that, Mike. So
Absolutely.
Will, go ahead.
Questions? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to understand what the communications pieces are with the MDT and the radios. Are you talking about on the vehicle or on the EMS?
It would be both. It's a great question. So it would be both. So an MDT is a laptop computer that's installed in the vehicle that would provide them their dispatch information and also their charting. Each vehicle would be equipped with a fixed radio, a mobile radio, and then the EMT would have a portable radio, or some refer to as like a walkie-talkie style radio that they would carry on their person. So that's typically how we would do it.
But it's using the first word. The federal.
It would be part of the county 911 system. So our department manages all the emergency communication towers in the county for the 911 system. So we would be putting EMS on that same system, the same as we have law enforcement and our fire departments now.
Okay, so as far as, the questions that relate more to what the legislature or TCAT, how the legislature and TCAT are responding to this, when can we get an opportunity to ask those kinds of questions?
So the public hearings are to receive public comment. So,
So I would go to another town. To ask more questions.
well, if they structure it that way,
Should I call Dan?
I-
Where do I get information on, how do I get more information?
well, you can email me, or, I'm just letting you know that the public hearing is to receive comment. If you have questions, I am all ears and would love to hear that. I can transmit that to Mike or the group. And so, do you have another question tonight, or?
Well, I'm probably like Candy, I have several, but I don't ask my questions very quickly. And I know I'm trying to also.
Okay, so, so follow up with me and I'll get you whatever information you need, so.
I'll leave everybody a card before I leave. And then that way, if you have a question, you can feel free to call me. And I would be more than willing to come back and have more conversation about it. So
You're
I
very
think,
generous.
sorry.
You're very generous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of experience and wisdom in this community, so.
And I want to capitalize on
I
that.
think it would be worthwhile to do that.
Great. So, process wise, I think, I want to express my gratitude to you, Mike, for coming tonight. It's been just so great for all of us, I think. I'm speaking for everyone. And So thanks so much.
You're welcome. I'm just gonna run out to my car. I have a bunch of cards out there, so I can
Okay.
give everybody a card. I didn't want to interrupt and then just like to get your email address so I can get back to you, but I'm pretty sure I have. But I'm just gonna double check to make sure I didn't give you any correct information.
Yeah, and I can connect you with Rick.
Okay,
So-
wonderful. Let me
No.
run out to my car and grab some
Okay,
cards.
great. And just, I don't know, for the formality of the process, if anybody does now want to make a statement as part of the public hearing. I know that Will signed up for the public hearing, and so we're prepared to receive those. So Will, did you want to make a statement?
Well, based on, what information I have at this point, it's not clear the allocation of the expenses where Caroline has a $500,000 there is. I hope that the legislature will give another thought to that. It just seems out of proportion to the rest of the county.
You're looking at the cost estimates that we discussed earlier. Okay, so we'll get more information on that, but
Yeah, well, you know, I hope they would reconsider. I mean, at this point, I don't get why it should cost that much to cover Caroline as opposed to the hinterlands of Lansing and Groton.
so you don't see, okay, so you're unclear on the advantages of doing it countywide.
Is it an allocation
No.
of cost?
No, it's not.
Allocation of oh, yeah, so that's a discussion going forward, I think.
Yes, so
So-
I would hope the legislature would
Okay, so-
reconsider that.
so but the numbers in this document were not allocations of cost. Right?
So I think, can I,
I don't think.
this might help,
Okay.
I think this has been great. And I think reading the document is wonderful, but I really do think there needs to be a presentation to help explain what we're looking at. Because I don't think there is a lot of knowledge base for the general public to know what is being presented to them.
Mhm. Okay,
And even with my knowledge base, there's stuff I have questions about. So I really do think there needs to be a formal presentation that's, and I don't wanna be rude, but
you can,
kind of simplified, so people understand, you
Sure.
know, this is what it's gonna cost the taxpayer potentially, and or, you know, like, it was very unclear in the map where those were gonna be staged. There's four bullet points where they said they're gonna stage these 5 cars, but they're only doing 3 vehicles. And there's cost analysis between an ambulance versus a fly car. And it's not real clear that it's ALS or BLS, so I think it would be very beneficial to have some sort of a presentation moving forward as part of the public hearing, so people
Great.
kind of understand.
okay,
Yeah, but you have to make a lot of guesses and
Right.
assumptions based on experience.
okay, Thank you.
Unfortunately, I have a father who's not doing possible. I have a father who is not doing well.
oh,
so I have-
okay, great, thanks for coming,
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
see you.
Good luck with that.
Two in 2 years, yay.
Irene,
Yeah, I have a comment also, I agree that, there should be a more formal presentation.
great,
I found the shared services document exciting in concept, but, confusing in other parts, looking
Okay.
at the budget, you know, it just, I think, and, you know, obviously I've, you know, been involved with this stuff too, and it just wasn't fully clear to me, so I think that.
okay,
PowerPoints that, you know, and not for you to do, but for Mike, to do it as he presents
Yeah.
to the legislature, yeah, so it's my comment, not yours.
Right.
So, but I do wanna say that I absolutely am excited and support this in concept. You know, I think details, you know, preliminary, you know, better presentation for legislators to understand what it is, along with municipalities. I think this has been a very valuable conversation here. I don't know how our community compares to other communities in terms of the engagement and involvement and awareness of EMS issues. But, you know, there may be other communities that also have a lot of questions like we do. So what I would recommend going forward, I support the idea that it's a shared service, you know, conceptually, I'm on board. But, you know, what I think is particularly important, data-driven, yes, but ongoing, you talked about a 20-member EMS steering committee, keep that going, expand it, you know, bring in representation from, you know, informed representatives from different communities, to really have more community buy-in, knowledge, experience, acceptance. But you know, conceptually, this feels like the idea that I worked on years ago, and I was thrilled to see it happen. So you know, yeah.
Great.
So conceptually, yes, and details. And the reality is, you know, not all the details are gonna be known up front.
That's right.
It's a work in progress. And I think, you know, over time, my guess is it's gonna expand and we're gonna see, you know, less volunteerism and, you know, but it's great that we're getting started and
Mhm.
whatever concerns people have about it happening here, it's more than we have now. So, you know, it's a step in the right direction. It's not perfect. No, having one person, not two in a car is not perfect. But it's better than none, and it's better than waiting for 25 minutes.
Or 45.
Or 45. So,
Great, thank you. Great, appreciate that. Did I see another hand?
Yeah, just to build on what Irene said, which I agree with 100%, better than what we have now. By what, a long shot. Maybe a good time to do formal presentations would be when, say, details like where the staging stationing Caroline Renault, let's say.
I didn't catch that actually.
I said maybe a good time to do a formal presentation would be when the details, such as like the staging station in Caroline, is known. So you could say to people who are present, you know, it would be at the Slingerville Volunteer Fire Department where they have, you know, a lot of equipment and people already. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. It could be any one of a number of places, but yeah, I think people would really like to know just what exactly Caroline will get as part of this party, because we need some.
Great, thank you. So I guess up.
Could I just mention, just people haven't mentioned this, so I wanted to make sure everyone knew that this is that as part of the pilot project, the county is considering seeking the startup and operating costs for the first year through the New York State Local Government Efficiency Grant, and the New York State Countywide Shared Service Initiative. Right, I just want to make sure that this is kind of saying we want to be able to use this funding to get this going. So it's not like an immediate increase in taxes tomorrow or anything like that. And I want to just make sure that people realize that this is the request to the county legislature to get this moving, and then work it out as we move forward.
Yeah, so the county administration submitted a grant. I can't remember the name of it. It's a state grant for the equipment. And then the shared services grant is being put forward for the rest of the pilot program for next year. But it is a valid point about going forward, how things will be paid for. So, and I think that will have to be a well-considered discussion about what's fair. between municipalities. I think the really good thing about, so this, as far as this is the first public hearing that's been held about this. And I did inquire at the outset about some kind of a presentation in advance. And so and I'm so glad that Mike Steitley came tonight to give us the depth of his well in this area. So all I'm trying to say is I think for the remaining public hearings, of which there are 3, and one will be to the legislature, we can sharpen our game and have a presentation in advance of those. And I think for the town of Caroline, we could have a public presentation, or an explanatory presentation or a PowerPoint that wouldn't necessarily have to be connected to another public hearing here. But it could just explain things, and then people could bring that to the public hearing with the legislature or in another town. So I think this is really good that we did this tonight, because I've gotten this feedback and I can pass it along, and we can, and Mike and Joe have presented PowerPoints to us as a committee before that I think will be easy to tweak and help people understand where we're going.
If you do that, I know it's gonna sound weird, but people will want to know, will the ambulances take them to Cortland or to Guthrie and Saker?
People will want to know what?
If the once the ambulances come with this new program, if they will take
Where they'll take them?
to Sayre or Cortland, they'll just want to know. I know it sounds weird, but it's the way things are right now. There are people who will drive themselves to those places rather than go.
Well, they want to go there.
Because they need to know, they don't want to go there. Some people will
Don't-
not go to Cayuga Medical.
Yeah.
And so that question's gonna come up, you
Mhm.
know, just put it in the.
Okay. This isn't changing ambulance service one iota.
Just say,
So,
that's a good thing to put in.
and I will point that out. Mike pointed it out several times tonight. So
Oh, I think,
this is to support the existing response services as well as the existing transport services.
yeah. But I mean, like, one of the things that I couldn't quite capture is, like, does Groton ambulance service go to other places? I don't know. Currently. So even if it doesn't change things, it doesn't tell me, I don't really know what we actually get, right? It's sort of made me know.
Okay.
Which is why I don't drive to Cortland or Sayre, but I can drive myself to the yard because I can't wait for an ambulance. I can drive still.
Okay. So food for thought. Thank you. Okay, so I will now close the public hearing or whatever we've had on the 2024 shared services plan, which was a very worthwhile discussion. So thank you, everybody. And now I'll open the September 6th, 2023 town board meeting. And open the meeting agenda with the highway superintendent's report. I will offer a few comments. So I did ask Bob about the status of the speed limit signs for Landon and Lounsbury roads. That is in process. Apparently he was prepared to do it, and then he learned from Jeff that he actually needs to get a second letter from the state about that. But
Why?
anyway, that's what I learned. Anyway, so he is, I think, so he's working with Jeff and will be putting out the signs in the appropriate spacing and locations as soon as he gets that second authorization from the state, so. It is in process and he has been working on it. And, somebody asked about the right to farm signs. And so, I think what he recommended was, if he thought about, 4 or 6 signs, would be appropriate and, have a discussion with us or the ag committee about where those might go. He thought the state route 79 would take more lift as far as having to work with the state on that. The county roads would be easier. We talked about the Brookendale Valley Central Chapel 76 road as a possibility. That one kind of seems to make sense. It transects the town kind of one side to the other, so. Maybe, I don't know.
Do we have the signs?
I don't know if we have those signs yet, but he said, those are not difficult to get, so. So that's,
It seems like at the town borders with, like on West Creek Road, where you go from Tioga County to Town of Caroline. There's not one there. It seems like that would be an appropriate spot.
yeah,
Things like that.
like the, like 76 road right when you get to Speedsville, that
Yeah.
was sort of
Well, we're just,
take care of it, right?
yeah, I just think at the county lines on major thoroughfares.
Mhm.
I mean, the county town lines where you're just change the jurisdiction.
Intersect, yeah. So,
I mean, there are a Speedsville store at that bridge and then over
mhm.
West Creek Road as it goes. It's over to Jinxville. I don't know, at least that's my driving around.
I could see one up here at the
Exactly, on Midline Road,
Midline Road,
where you come
Midline
in from the town of Dryden, it just,
it's a major thoroughfare.
and if there's ever any challenge for any, well, we've posted, maybe.
A challenge to farming or what?
I can't imagine what can happen.
So-
Legally. Somebody builds a new house and doesn't like the smell of.
But this is more for just, right, a general communal
Just we value
declaration.
farming in this
Right.
community.
Right,
Michelle?
so what's the purpose of the right to farm signs? I mean, I understand about it, you were right to farm
Community.
community and all that. What is the purpose of the signs? Like what are you hoping to? Because that would determine where you put them, right?
Yep.
So what is the goal? Is it for example, I think a lot of times you're behind really slow hay wagon. Right, and so people that are used to that, like, should know, well,
Be patient.
be patient, because this person has the right to do that, so I would think you would wanna pick areas where that might occur.
They'd be likely to, that
Yeah.
sort of encounter to be.
Off the
Okay.
top of my head, is just what I'm.
Yeah.
Were you in the meeting with this discussion? With the ag committee?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see it more as a legalistic thing.
I see. No, I mean, I remember there was discussion during the land use task force, Ken Miller brought it up about right to farm signs and stuff.
Well,
I'm turning into a pumpkin.
we should ask the ag committee if they have ideas.
It's
of
really
where
nice to
signs
see everyone, you guys.
Yeah,
Nice to see
I'm
you,
pretty
Aisha.
sure
Thanks for
Congress
coming.
wanted one on
Yeah.
79
Good night.
coming in.
but if that's a problem, if they can't do that.
Well, we might be able to do it, might just take.
Well, the state has a sign department, the state has to put it up.
So for background, Michelle, this is something that came out of discussions last year with the ag committee.
Yeah,
And then they proposed to the town board that we put up these signs. So we discussed this about a year.
Those aren't edible.
Discussed this about a year ago and it's just
yeah,
getting.
yeah.
Just hasn't happened.
So it's less for legal purposes because legal purposes is covered by town law.
Right, that's what I
It's
figured.
more cultural.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. I think part of the problem was, in my humble opinion, that a large number of signs were proposed, and it was overwhelming.
Yeah,
And
That-
so
yes.
we're just trying to get a reasonable number and a proposal for where that ought to actually be, and then we can have a discussion back with Bob about it and then go from there.
Was
Yeah.
the original proposal like 40 signs or something?
Really? Well, that's my question, like what's,
42.
or 25.
It was a
Yeah.
large.
yeah. Is the purpose to scare people driving through town that, hey, you might have to slow down here because, you know, the priority to these.
Or at least, you know,
Or, so what's the point?
Will, were you at that meeting? You're on the ed committee, correct?
Surfers.
You take the minutes, right?
Yeah, I'm the ad hoc note taker. Cause I can't, to be here. It's just for general reasons. I mean, everybody has their own thing in mind when they make the suggestion where to put the sign. So I don't think anyone said anything that's off base, and there were a couple of specific locations that came up with us before I took the notes. I was there, but I wasn't.
Okay.
Well, I'm just curious,
Just
you know,
back in
what
my-
what the theory and
what
philosophy
the
is.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the philosophy behind it?
The
I
Long
feel it.
Ferry Road and Landon Road intersection, that it's curious that you're bringing up about the speed limit, because that's a place where a couple of farmers have gone with their slow moving vehicles and people pass them on the left and they're trying to make that turn out.
Yeah, places like that, I mean, it seems like you need to have a.
Yeah.
Not that.
Maybe we need right to farm signs that go on the back of hay wagons.
I
We're gonna need a lot more to 42.
That's an interesting idea.
The
Well,
back of
anyway,
my
I just-
horse.
I don't wanna waste time on this, I guess I'm just curious, like, what are you going for here?
Yeah, it's a good question. Becky,
Yeah, I haven't been to the egg committee, so public's work. Oh, well, thank you. But, so I guess I'm wondering, are farmers feeling, that, driving public is an issue with them? Or,
I mean, they definitely are,
well, see, that's what I.
but a sign doesn't just. People that have problems don't care what the sign says, if you know what I mean.
that's right.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea was to promote farming in Carroll.
Yeah,
Okay,
Or
so that
just-
makes
in a
sense.
positive way,
Parents,
just-
yeah, and
just
say that
say
we
with value.
support the farmers and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the hay wagons and
Totally.
the tractors and
Yes.
stuff, yeah,
So you wanna put them someplace where there's gonna be a lot of traffic,
yeah,
That's the idea.
yeah.
makes sense?
Okay. So, should we make a request to should we come up with something with a proposal?
I thought we already had.
For 4 or 6 signs?
Oh, 4, 6, yeah, well, let's do it again.
I think we need to help Bob here
Yes,
with,
All right,
more
and I
definition.
would like to propose 6 signs.
6, okay?
I think 4 is too meager. 6 to 8 signs, I would say.
Let's say 6.
6 signs
That's good.
to be strategically
Plus
placed.
the 2 on the state road. So total be.
Plus 2 on the state road, that's fine.
okay, 6 plus 2 on the
Okay,
state road.
we're talking about 8 signs now.
8
8
signs.
signs.
Yeah, but we know the state road's gonna take a long time to get.
So 2 signs for the
Like-
state road
like 10
and
years.
6 stop signs for
Yeah.
town /
Town,
county
county
roads.
roads.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, and,
I would leave it to the discretion of the highway supervisor and the highway liaison as to where the signs should be placed.
Sounds good,
are you okay with that, liaison?
Yep, I sure am.
okay.
Okay,
And then the liaison can make sure that it gets done.
Yeah,
are you gonna remember that?
yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
They can't all be in front of the snow farm.
There'll
Not a bad idea.
There'll be one on the back of the snow hay wagon. The other, it is partially, it's highway related. The Ecruz project is going swimmingly. And so I'm happy about that. Yeah, and the excavator guy this morning was hoping to be out of there today, so, that's moving along. What else did Bob mention? Bob mentioned he did have a discussion with Labella about the highway barn and things like that. So I guess they looked at how the snowplows would fit in the garage with the dimensions they proposed. And so they tweaked that a little bit and asked them I think they have like a student intern working on that part of it. So anyway, one of their people at Labella is gonna work on that.
Are we gonna discuss this in any more detail tonight, or is this the time to do?
I don't think so.
So I just had a question.
Okay,
Uh,
unless there's a need.
no, but I had a question just based on what I read, because it wasn't there's not that much to it,
Okay,
but, what caught my attention was they're proposing 5 double garage bays. So my question is, does that mean 5 bays or 10 bays? You know what I'm asking? 5 bays, and then it looked like they were proposing then a 6th bay for maintenance. So a question that I just have,
And I was kind of unclear on that too.
to be,
So 5
One
or
of those
6.
5 was a maintenance.
Okay,
it was unclear.
Right, is it a double bay then?
Well,
You're
the doors are what, 22 feet
Doors are-
wide?
Double bay just means big
Right.
doors, right?
Yeah,
okay, I can
But
too.
yeah,
We
so
can
that's
figure that
just
out.
something, because I still think that we should be able to make do with something reasonable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of checking, but that's just the only thing that caught my attention, because
Okay.
the other stuff is just so minor that,
Yep.
Because square footage was 9,000 square feet.
yeah. I didn't see that, actually, I did see total square footage.
Well, whatever. But yeah, no, I was unclear on that. Too about it.
The perk test for septic was negative for where they had proposed it, so they moved it over to the other side of that spot up high for the septic field
Near the road, or do you mean on top, all the way
on
up?
top. Yeah, it's still up top, but it's in a different spot.
Okay. Well, it's good that they got a positive spot at least
Yeah,
up there, that's good news.
and there's an ongoing discussion about how we're gonna drain meltwater off the trucks and clean them and where that's gonna go.
Just, Cal, one of the things that came up when you weren't at the initial meeting with them, when we did the
Right.
walkthrough. And they expressed concern about the ability to have an indoor wash basin
Okay.
for drainage.
Yeah, I read what you wrote about the,
Yeah,
Well, I guess I did my musings today on it.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's some issue with EPA and stuff like that,
Yeah, well, you'd have to collect all the drain water
take it out.
in a cistern.
But you were with the in the meeting with me with Labella, right? So, and we talked about that, isn't that right?
Well,
I think so.
what-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
But that's the issue.
But yeah, we can't just kind of let it.
except that they did tell us that DEC would let you do that, so.
If you, yeah, you can just kind of let it run out into the parking lot and that's okay.
No, it was okay if it
Or
went
whatever
on, if
it
it
is.
went onto ground with vegetation.
Yeah,
So that's the push point. We're trying to come up with something more reasonable than that, because that doesn't seem reasonable. So,
and then my thing was years ago, we worked with Cornell Ag Engineering to do something with, runoff from a farm. It was, duckweed, just some vegetation and kind of some sloping and kind of well hold it and help it perk down through.
and you did that, right?
It worked great. But anyway, it just great, because it's really expensive to catch hold of the fall.
Okay, great, and so that's all I have to report from Bob.
while we're on highway related stuff, I'll
Okay.
just mention that I was approached by Kelly Verity, who lives on Coddington Road. Brought up the issue of speed again on Coddington, and I explained to her that the best thing to do would be for her to bring us a petition. She put a online petition up, she has 96 signatures.
Good job.
There's been a huge problem downloading the petition for some reason.
Oh, really?
But she's gonna come in, but can't have it. But anyways, I think that this is really moving forward. And it turns out that the county was doing culvert work down the street from her. She went and talked to the crew yesterday,
Oh,
and one of the crews responsible for road counts. And she talked him into doing road count.
really?
So what I said to her is, I said, so now what we should do is get the petition here, then we'll go back to them as well, do a double barrel thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe the guy was just BSing her, he just.
Wait, what's a road count? Like how many?
Could have
Put the strips on.
Thing on the road.
Yeah, but not just a road count, because the 16th meeting, I said I would call the sheriff's department. I called the sheriff's department the next day and talked to a person named Smith, and they said that they would put up one of these electronic speed signs that records and gives us data. If, you know, because sometimes people think things are, it'll give us data.
Yeah.
You know, how fast are people really driving on this road? And, you know, I just
Or
told them
whatever,
that-
whatever they do, I don't.
Yeah,
care,
but come on, let's get something done, and, you know, usually give them squeaky wheels and grease, and. So that petition would really help, and then we follow up, but, I called them on the 17th of August, and they promised that they would. You know, I said,
That was the sheriff's office,
yes,
and Smith, is who you talking about?
So wait, you talked to them about which road, the,
Coddington Road,
on Coddington, okay, great.
especially
Is that not,
west, Carolyn Depot Road, where the
Right.
speed limit's 55.
I think it would be really helpful though if we make sure to do this in a coordinated fashion. so
Yes,
we're not
yes,
all just
Yeah.
willy-nilly calling people, you know?
yeah, because I was waiting for the petition to come
Yeah,
in, right?
Yeah.
And
We have the
I
petition
signed
now,
it,
so
yeah.
the petition exists, so I say now.
Yeah.
We can say we have.
Yeah.
got a petition.
yeah.
I think Jesse got something, but there was
Wasn't able to download it.
nothing attached or something.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
maybe,
so,
maybe it worked fine.
okay,
Kelly was working on it all morning trying to get it.
Yeah.
To us.
There's lots of other squeaky wheels complaining too, so, yeah, it follow through a petition that helps make her case.
well, can we put that on for, the next meeting for us to, you know, put something forward to the county and formally request,
Yeah, if we have a petition, definitely.
Yeah.
I think we should.
The petition exists, so yeah.
right,
Both county highway and the sheriff's.
yeah, but we have to ask the county to ask the state to do a study. Right, to do, to look at the speed limits
Right.
over there.
How can you make sure that the petition is signed by people that actually,
Exist.
yeah,
Well, a petition isn't a legal document, it's just a presentation of public sentiment
okay,
to encourage the board to take up certain issues. And in the past,
mhm,
for this particular issue, there's just been a consensus with the board that since we can't just go change the speed limit on all the roads, that it will be more effective if the community can come forward with a petition for a certain site, that we can then go to the county and say, we have this
Right, yeah, this
significant
petition.
support for this.
mhm.
To Michelle's point, though, it's gonna be important, though, that
The names and addresses are there.
exactly that correspond to that stretch of road.
And I'm not sure, I just haven't seen.
I hope that's what she did.
I hope that's what you did.
Yeah. And
I just
there's
don't-
Well,
just,
I signed it, I don't live near there, but I drive there. So,
Well, I think it is,
Yeah.
Well, but you know, I'm not convinced that one has to live there to be
Yeah.
worried about that as an issue in the town.
yeah, I mean, I
And a
drive,
lot of people drive on that road, whether they live there or not, are impacted by what's going
Yeah.
on.
and they get passed by somebody on a blind corner.
Well,
Yeah,
the
I'm not,
trucks,
I'm not
the
saying
huge
they have
trucks
to
that are
live there or
going.
anything, I'm just wondering, like, is there some kind of vetting? That,
no, not
that
really,
has
no.
been, that people have put their address on, for example, or, you know.
Yeah.
something.
the petition probably has their name and address though, right?
I don't know, I haven't seen that.
I don't know, I can't remember, yeah, I mean, I think it's generally really difficult because 79 is now 45 miles an hour. And the town roads are 55. The rural towns don't have a speed limit, so you've got people going faster on the side roads legally than they can on the state road, and that's a problem with speed. So
Yeah, I'm not
Connington is
disagreeing-
still
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm
55,
just
so if you're
curious
trying
about-
to get in
Right, we're
to town anyway.
in the choir.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, I agree with all that, I'm just, you're putting a lot of emphasis on the petition, I'm just wondering what kind of
Just
vetting
gives
is
a
done
little-
with the petition.
It gives a
My
little
question.
way for it to go to the county
Yeah.
and then the state.
It's not crucial, but
it's
it's
not
an
crucial.
added thing.
We felt it would
And if
maybe
it's-
push
and
it
if
forward a
it's
little
been
faster.
Filled in, well, then it would. And if it seems like it's just a bunch of people that have just signed their names and then, don't exist, then it may not, is what I'm saying.
So
I'm just curious.
what's your understanding, Cal? I thought the petition was an important part of the process. But
I think it's more it's a more important part of the process than Cal Snow calling up the sheriff's office and saying, just blowing
Really?
off steam. Yeah, because that's the thing about a petition. If there's, somebody took the time to write something out. So,
And talk to people about it.
And it's
yeah,
something that-
Identify a problem. that's-
yeah,
I encourage her to do because
Yeah.
we've done this in the past.
yeah, and it's an ongoing problem and we gotta keep,
And this section of road, Cottington Road, I mean, Irene used to harp on this all the time.
Yep.
So this has been an ongoing board discussion.
It does seem weird that the speed limit will be higher there than on 79.
the speed limit's
Right.
55 unless it's otherwise posted. And to go around and post all
And getting the 79 speed limit lowered was no easy task.
so, great.
Okay.
I think you probably, everybody saw Dan's report today.
Mhm.
No,
So the county is embarking on planning a new building. They're gonna,
right.
So which 3 buildings are they taking down?
I don't know.
It's the bank, I think it's
the old bank,
the old bank.
the old key bank.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the election. Is it the election building?
No,
No, then it's the one, the key bank.
It's
and
not
then
the
one
election,
next to
it's not the old Ithaca College Music Building where Steve works?
It's not that building I am,
Okay,
it's Key Bank and then I
think the
believe
one
the
right next to it.
building next.
so it's a
Oh, so
legal
across-
office.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Contact.
Not really well used.
So it's
space.
between Buffalo and the courthouse,
Okay,
which makes logical sense.
Yeah.
They gave up the idea of tearing down the historic house
Boardman,
to put it there.
Interesting.
Okay.
Committee reports. Anything?
I don't have much, Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council is meeting next Tuesday. Be a joint session, so I'll be there Tuesday afternoon.
Great.
Working on Safe Streets for All. Hopefully that'll really get moving this fall, so.
Regarding wire, broadband, I got
Oh,
an
yeah, Rod.
email from Nancy Belisle,
Mm,
encouraging us to work as fast as possible for service on Thomas Road. And she gave me the addresses. I passed it on to Mark and Kate of the folks who aren't served in that section of the road. So, I'll get back to her and I said, okay, you will.
okay,
Right, to Dan about that too.
I have some thoughts about that too,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Okay.
Anything else? So let's see. the minutes of August 16th. Should we approve those?
Looks again done well.
Good, okay. August 16th minutes are hereby approved, and agenda items.
I just want to let everybody know that I'm not gonna be here for the business meeting. I have a business trip. I've had to delay for a year and a half. So we're looking forward to taking. So that'll be the business meeting. I won't be here.
I'm wondering if I
Do you want me to do vouchers for you?
Oh, that'd be great.
Glad to.
Great, thank you.
Does the clerk give a report tonight or next time?
Next time,
Next time.
the I wonder if I should plan a presentation on the EMS proposal for the shared services. You want to talk to Mike about that?
If he has enough, I mean, if there's enough lead time for him to do something more
That would be great.
developed than he is able to do tonight.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this September. Yeah, so,
We could do it, why not?
so,
I mean, I actually found his report to be pretty clear, except for that one question of the larger figure for Caroline
right,
that I'd actually asked you about.
yeah,
And the areas of coverage, I thought actually on the map, that was pretty clear that the fourth area was Ithaca, so I didn't find that confusing.
yeah, there's flexibility.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility, it's not a hard and fast situation. So,
And it's great to hear that they're thinking of trying to locate one out here, that's great.
Yeah.
be
that's real good
fantastic.
news.
Yeah.
We got a wonderful email of interest from Evelyn,
Yeah,
who wants to continue her work with the Joint Youth Commission as a Caroline resident.
that's fantastic.
So I will
Yeah.
invite her to that meeting to talk to us. It is, I agree, fantastic. I hope, and I've said this before, so, but I will, the battery storage law, I will make a valiant attempt to get it onto your desks and be able to introduce it at the September 20th meeting. Should be able to do that because Will and Bill have it in very good shape. And
we're gonna start doing budget at the next one.
oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. So,
Tim won't be here.
he's hoping we'll start it and finish it in one meeting.
I'm hoping that you start and finish one aspect of it in one.
Yeah, you know, I would like to do that. The tentative budget's due by September 30th.
Also, it's truly.
But I would like to, I started working on it a lot, and I think, probably, yeah, if I can do it, I will. I'll. So,
Just trying to give you something to do.
yeah.
Mhm.
So. So yeah, possibly the budget. Great.
We'll need to schedule special meetings for the budget, go over it.
We might schedule, yeah, we might schedule working meetings.
Okay.
We always do.
Yeah,
I think last year we were pretty efficient. We
Yeah.
might have only scheduled one.
it went quickly,
What's that?
it went quickly,
It went quickly, so yeah,
never experienced one, so.
and so. Yeah, I'll let you know that by the end of this week, if we can. Do our first one on the 20th, that would be awesome, get things moving along. Anything else? That the budget is, yeah, important.
Where are we with the zoning law?
Pardon me?
Where are we with the zoning law? Will we be waiting for
Um,
Guy or will we seeker or?
so we've got Guy's review and
Mhm.
we need to digest that. I think we're gonna need to talk with the planner and
Okay.
compare notes, so that would be my proposal.
So are his comments like within document, where are his comments?
I can show you, it
Right.
is, I mean, like, if you go,
Underlined, I think.
if you go into a Word document on the side, these little windows pop up.
I didn't see any windows.
But you have to take your cursor over there.
Well, I couldn't get it on my phone.
Oh, you-
Might have come on the device.
I was using the laptop. And
I
so,
got it on the laptop, but I couldn't get
but I mean,
it.
I saw what looked to be your changes, right? Is that what I'm looking at? There's some things in different colors that,
No, that's his.
oh,
That's
so if I
probably
put my cursor on those, then his comment will
Okay,
pop up?
so
But there's
Probably.
another
Click.
option over there on the right that, I know when the zoning commission was looking at it, you'd have a whole column there
Yeah.
with all the
All
comments
those-
lined up.
Those comments.
there we go.
And there's a way to trigger that.
It
yeah.
doesn't look like that on my laptop.
So there's this opened up when I clicked on that little,
Question mark box.
this little box here.
Okay, so I did see what seemed to be changes, but I thought maybe those were changes you had made.
Yes,
They are,
he didn't make
So
changes,
let me
he
do it
made
again.
comments.
but I mean, what looks to be a change is actually a comment related to say that word. Is that right?
Oh, he might have
Yeah.
done something like that, I'm not
So
sure.
I just clicked on these little boxes. So I go over
Well, See, I
here
didn't see any little boxes, but I don't have my
And I
laptop with me,
click.
so I'll look again.
and then the
What
comments.
do you use it, do you use a PC or a Mac?
Mac,
It should,
Yeah, this is a Mac. So
should come up.
I
That's
can
weird.
show you afterwards.
I know what the boxes are supposed to look like, I
Yeah.
just didn't
Okay.
see them,
Oh, that's weird.
but I'll look at it again.
Maybe,
I saw things like header and footer.
maybe
which
when,
seemed-
maybe that when it got transferred, forwarded to you, something got messed up, whatever. But Mark, maybe you should send it to Michelle again,
Okay,
the document, maybe that's, you just never know.
It's just one document, right? Cause it's like, it looks like there's two. I clicked on both sides and I got the same thing.
yeah. No,
I'll look at it more carefully then and see if I see those little boxes. Cause I know we used to for the zoning commission, but I didn't see anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks the same, just the same.
Okay,
yeah, I'll be around tomorrow, call me or come by
Alright.
or something.
But it is true that when I tried to read it on my phone, I couldn't get it.
yeah, things are always different on my phone.
Yeah, I don't do it on my phone,
Yeah, that's
I
too
can't
big.
deal with that
That's
smallness.
Yeah, too much to read on the
Yeah.
device, but I have a laptop looks probably just like that, so should.
So, yeah. So those are the agenda items I have.
Oh, so, yeah, but when, do you have a plan for like when we're gonna go the next step with to discuss his comments or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I think it would be helpful for us to get Nan's response to some of them,
Okay,
if she has time.
because they're technical. kind of
Because some of them
things.
are just really technical.
so are you,
Most of them are
you,
technical.
has she been copied on this as
Mhm.
well? I see. And also, if it's confidential, like, can you discuss it during a regular meeting or do you have to do something?
I think you could discuss it. I don't know. I mean, it is confidential. It's
Yeah.
attorney,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
we might have to do it in
executive session or something.
Yeah, that might be the way to handle it.
Okay,
Yeah, because there's quite a bit of legal
Questions or whatever.
I see.
questions and or
Yeah.
back and forth in there
okay.
that are open-ended, so that might be the way to go. So maybe what we should, I mean, we don't want this to stall.
Right,
But I found that I did need Nan's counsel on a lot of these things because some of it might have appeared to be kind of professional sparring in a few places, if you know what I mean. So it'd just be good to get her feedback.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's necessary.
Yeah. Because there's no use in our spinning our wheels until we have that context, I don't think. So hopefully she could do it the next couple of weeks or
Mhm.
so we can get back to it in October.
Okay. So I'll look at it again tomorrow. And wait, you said you're gonna be around, Mark,
Tomorrow,
tomorrow?
yeah.
So if I had a problem, I could bring my laptop in and.
Yeah.
Show me.
Do you have questions, Cal, about the whole process or anything? Okay. So, good night, Will. So I wanted to call executive session to discuss compensation. So I'll offer a motion to enter executive session. Second by Tim, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, thanks. So that was,
So that's starting now.
yep,
Thanks, Becky.
thanks, Becky.